Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to a live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update show. Reports coming in that apparently Manchester United have decided to sell Zirkzee, but I'm going to tell you exactly why I think that is lazy journalists and a load of rubbish. Now, there is a possibility Zirkzee could be sold because there was interest selling him in January, but I personally don't believe that's going to happen. But we're going to talk about the news, Zirkzee's future, Højlund's future. What's been said on that? Because I think Manchester United deciding to sell Zirkzee and not Højlund, for me, would be somewhat confusing, despite Højlund being more of an out-and-out striker. Bruno Fernandes sale, could it happen? I'm sure you've heard about it because it came out this morning, but I decided it's Mother's Day not to do any content this morning. I thought I'd just do a show in the afternoon. But £90 million, Real Madrid, Bruno Fernandes. First of all, how reliable is it? What's the truth in this? Second of all, could Bruno leave? Could Manchester United sell Bruno? And how would this change the whole summer? Because I think Bruno leaving is possible. I really do. I think he's going to be 31. If Manchester United get £90 million, despite him being irreplaceable with the financial situation we're in, they will definitely look at it. I think we're in a position where we can't sell Bruno because we are so reliant on him. But the player himself is open to leaving Manchester United as much as he loves us because he hasn't got long left at the top and he wants to win major trophies. Bruno was trying to leave Manchester United in the summer until we got offered a new contract with the promise that we'd win trophies under Ineos, which, to be honest, can he wait 3 years for us to be good again? And will we even be good again in 3 years when a Real Madrid is there? Adam Wharton, United watching him. More news stories coming in about our interest in Adam Wharton. Gyökeres, Amarin's interest in Gyökeres. He only wants to come if there's UCL football, so winning the Europa League, could that get us Gyökeres? Delap, Cunha, two big targets of Manchester United. New centre-back target playing out in Denmark. A little bit of more transfer news and update. We're looking at a lot of young players, particularly in the centre-back position, maybe another Aiden Heaven type player. And of course, more news stories coming in on Marcus Rashford. He's had a very good game for Aston Villa today, scoring 2 goals. So I hope everybody watching is having a good day. I'm really gutted that Manchester City beat Bournemouth. I watched the first half, Bournemouth 1-0 up. It's just one of those. It's just one of those. I was really hoping that we would have seen Manchester City knocked up, seen a trophy this season for Manchester City. But other than that, it has been a good day. We're going to get into the news. We're going to get into the stories as well. But we're going to start with the Zirkzee news. And before I even get into the Zirkzee news, I'm going to get this comment up, if I can find it again. For Cheers as a source is like the equivalent of Mount telling you he'd stay fit for more than 45 minutes. Okay, so you know me, there are certain sources that I don't like to report on unless a lot of people sort of start talking about it and I want to then bitch about the source. And Facheus is one of them. Facheus and Footy Insider are two sources of information that and the Star. Facheus, the Star, Footy Insider are probably 3 sources of information. When they write a story about Manchester United, it is credible as Mason Mount saying he could stay fit, or Luke Shaw saying he could stay fit. Like, it's not good. So, Facheus is saying that Manchester United have decided to sell Joshua Zirkzee after a shocker of a first season at the club. And I have an issue with this. 1, clickbait. 2, not reliable. And 3, doesn't make sense. And 4, shocker first season at the club. The difficult first few months, really in these last 3 months, starting to show what he can bring and starting to show he could have a future at Manchester United. So we're going to talk about that. We will talk about Bruno in a second because I agree he's irreplaceable. Kayan said I'd crash out if Zirkzee left. I'd be gutted if Zirkzee left. There is a possibility Zirkzee could leave, and we will talk about that. But let's dive into this. So first of all, my response. Facheus might be the worst source out there. Clearly haven't watched a single game but want to write something for clicks. Zirkzee's been our best attacker for the last 3 months. Lazy reporting. Facheus is 1, not reliable. 2, never says anything that is correct. 3, makes up all their information. And 4, I feel like they don't even do research. And I was sort of talking about this the other day. I am not a journalist, but I try and make sure that I'm up to date with everything in regards to Manchester United. I read stories from reliable sources, less reliable sources. I speak to people who have sources and connections as well to the club to get information. Some I trust, some I don't trust as much. I always try and learn as much as I can, and when we're linked to players and stuff like that, I always try and do my research. Now, I feel like when I'm always reporting other news, we get journalists coming out like 2 weeks ago saying Manchester United are looking for 50 million for Marcus Rashford from Aston Villa. And I'm thinking, well, when Manchester United let Rashford go on loan to Aston Villa, it was common knowledge that there's a 40 million buy option in there. There's a 40 million option to buy for Villa to get Rashford. Yet some journalist tells me 2 weeks ago that Man United are going to ask Villa for 50 million. Why would they ask Villa for 50 million when they've agreed a 40 million option to buy? So it reminds me this week we've got a journalist saying that Zirkzee has had a shocker of a first season at the club. And I just think, again, another example of lazy journalism. I think lazy journalism. For Chase, is up there because Zirkzee had a difficult first few months. This is how I would explain the Zirkzee signing. Zirkzee's not a striker and he's not a number 10. He's a 9.5. He's a very unique profile of player and he's a system player. Zirkzee isn't one of those players that could, like Bruno Fernandes, who Bruno Fernandes doesn't even suit the system, but he's such a good player. You could play him as a 10, you could play him in a pivot, and he's going to do something for you. Zirkzee is a system player. Now, Zirkzee, I believe, is 23, but I think he was 22 at the time that he was signed. Yeah. Zirkzee is 23 years of age, yeah? He goes from the Italian league after his first breakout season to the Premier League, the most difficult league in the world, to a Manchester United team, which is the most high-pressure state, difficult team to play for, at 23 years of age, and Erik ten Hag is playing him as a target man striker. Zirkzee was not signed to be a target man and do what we signed Wout Weghorst to do. Zirkzee is someone that would drop deep and link up the play. So Zirkzee comes to a new league at 23 years of age. He's completely misprofiled by Erik ten Hag, despite having a very impactful game in his first game versus Fulham. Looked good in the Brighton game, looked good in the Crystal Palace game, really good in the Crystal Palace game. He got worse when he came off, and in a very good game versus Southampton in the early days at Man United. And he had that poor stinker versus Newcastle where Casemiro was still worse than him that game, and he got subbed off and he got booed. And at that point in time, Christmas time, December 30th versus Newcastle, and Zirkzee came off unbooed, it'd been very disappointing. He hadn't been good enough. I was worried. I said maybe they're going to cash in on him in January. But since that moment, Zirkzee has put his head down. He's worked incredibly hard, and he's been our best attacker. Since Amad Diallo has been injured, I think Zirkzee, 11 out of the last 12 games, has been very good for us. And that's a lot more than what a lot of other players are offering. When I look at Joshua Zirkzee, I see a young guy that was misused, that was misprofiled, that wasn't given a chance, that's now finally getting a chance, finally getting consistent minutes in his legs. Ruben Amorim even said it. Joshua Zirkzee's fitter now. He's lost weight. He's in better shape. Ruben Amorim even said it. All of a sudden, Joshua Zirkzee's fitter. He looks fitter. He's in better shape. And he's playing better for Manchester United. And we're seeing these last few months, still not the finished product. There's still elements of this game that need to improve. But the last 3 months, we can't really complain with what we've seen from Zirkzee. He's finally being used in a better role. He's getting fitter. He's been given a chance. And we're seeing a really technically good player from Joshua Zirkzee. So for people to say shocker of a first season, it's a first season. It's an adaptation season. If Joshua Zirkzee continues on playing like he is right now from now until the end of the season, you'd give him a 6.5. You'd say first season, new league, needed to adapt. But second half of the season, we saw the growth, we saw the progress, and I'm happy with that. He didn't hit the ground running, but we saw the progress. So I don't like the way that Zirkzee's spoken about, because I think if Phil Foden had put in some of Zirkzee's recent performances, the media would be absolutely creaming themselves. So that's sort of where I am with Zirkzee as well. Big up Michael saying, great analysis. CFC Africa says, Zirkzee is not leaving, everything is fake. Now, do I think Zirkzee will leave Manchester United? No. Is there a possibility? Yes. I do think Zirkzee needs to score more goals, and that's his only downside. But I do feel like we're a better team when Zirkzee plays. You need a squad depth anyway, let alone setting off a player's improving a lot recently. Yeah, imagine Zirkzee as squad depth. A player gets injured, Zirkzee can come on. I think that's a decent player to have as well. So my stance with all of the Zirkzee stuff is Pacheers have made it up for some clicks. It's a bit quiet at the moment. We've had the international break. There's not loads to talk about. And Pacheers have gone, you know what? What are we going to do to get the clicks in? We're going to write a story about Zirkzee that's going to bait Manchester United fans, and it's probably a load of rubbish. Now, Manchester United actually had serious conversations in January about selling Zirkzee and cashing him in. Thiago Motta's Juventus was interested. Thiago Motta has now been sacked. Juventus, I don't know if they'd go for Zirkzee. There is interest in Zirkzee in Italy. There's also interest in Højlund in Italy. One of Zirkzee and Højlund could leave Manchester United, but as of now, United have no intention of selling Zirkzee, and Zirkzee has no intention of leaving. United apparently have no intention of selling Rasmus, and some sources say Rasmus is open to leaving and has asked his agent to look around. Other sources saying Rasmus wants to make it work at United. The players we want to sell: Rashford, tick. Antony, tick. Malacia, tick. Casemiro, tick. Players we'd be open to selling: Mason Mount, tick. Onana, tick. Players we could sell: Garnacho, depends on the offer. Delo, depends on the offer. Zirkzee, depends on the offer. Højlund, depends on the offer. But we're not actively looking to offload Zirkzee. There is a 5% chance that Zirkzee leaves. There's a small possibility he could leave because United explored options in the January market. But as of now, I think United think, why would we sell Zirkzee when we need to sell this player, this player, this player? But if a team came in and said, we'll give you 40 million for Zirkzee and we're going to make a profit on it, and Ruben Amorim said, you know what, I'd rather have Mecha play for us, and another attacking midfielder like a Morgan Rogers than Zirkzee, maybe United do it. The only way Zirkzee goes is if we're going to make profit on it, which we possibly could, but I don't know if we would. And Ruben Amorim's like, yeah, I need Mecha for the DM role, I need a Morgan Rogers for the 10 role, which would be ridiculously expensive. I'd sell Zirkzee for that, for example. I'm not saying that he wants Mecha and Morgan Rogers, but I would use that maybe as an example of what would be needed for us to sell Zirkzee. That source is the worst. Yeah, that is the worst. Big up, Saeed. How are you doing? Facheus is absolutely the worst source on there. And whenever they say things, I always literally just say it's the worst source on the internet. Facheus and Footy Insider. Yeah, absolutely worst sources out there. Big up, Saeed. Big up everybody in the chat. Zirkzee deserves to stay. I agree. Zirkzee got way too much criticism. Zirkzee's been better than Højlund. Zirkzee's been better than Garnacho this season. He gets way too much criticism. Remains to be seen if Zirkzee will add more goals in his game, but he's earned time to try and prove himself 100%. The only thing I would say about Zirkzee is he doesn't score enough goals. But he's getting better each game when he's showing progress. For me, in your first season, if you're a young player, if you show elements of progress and you show elements of what you could add to Manchester United, then I'm happy with that. I'm seeing elements of Zirkzee. I'm seeing what he could add. I'm seeing elements of progress. I'm saying, yep, he needs to score more goals, but I'm happy with Zirkzee. I'm happy for Zirkzee to stay at the club. That's sort of my stance on the whole situation. I don't think that, Zirkzee's going to go anywhere. I don't think we should let Zirkzee go anywhere. It's been a slow first season, but we're seeing elements, and he's been our best attacker since Ahmad's got injured. So I think, people don't like Zirkzee, but I think the Zirkzee hate is, give Mount time. Mount is one of those that I think we would sell, but he's impossible. I've said this before. Mason Mount is not going anywhere this summer because Mason Mount can't stay fit. So for Mason Mount to leave, someone needs to spend at least 30 million on him because he's still got 30 million on his book value. I think he's got 35 million on his book value. So for Mason Mount to leave without us taking a huge loss on PSR, we need 35 million. Who is going to spend 35 million on a Mason Mount that cannot stay fit and has barely kicked a football in 2 years' time, and also pay him 200k a week in wages? Nobody's going to do that. Mason Mount will not leave Manchester United this summer. Do I think Ineos would like Mason Mount to go? Yeah. I think if someone knocked on the door and offered us 50 million for Mason Mount, we would be saying, mate, we'd probably be packing Mount's bags for him. But again, Mason Mount, in my opinion, is not going anywhere. He's not going to leave Manchester United. If Zirkzee could score goals, he'd be perfect mini Berbatov. I do like Zirkzee. Anyway, let's continue on into some more stories, news, and information. So, it was said Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes is a 90 million transfer target for Real Madrid. This was said by the Sunday Express. Now, I think Bruno could go this summer. I actually do think Bruno could go this summer, but I don't think the source, one, is reliable enough, and two, it would take a huge offer. Now, there has been rumours and speculation about Manchester United and Bruno Fernandes and his future. Now, I'm going to talk about why this is going to change a whole summer plan if Bruno goes, and why this would be huge in a second. What do we know on Bruno Fernandes? First of all, Bruno Fernandes was very open to leaving Manchester United last summer. People don't realise that Bruno Fernandes was a lot closer to leaving Manchester United last summer than a lot of people think. There was a very strong possibility that Bruno Fernandes could have left us in the summer. Very, very strong possibility that Bruno Fernandes could have left us in the summer. But we gave him a new contract. Ineos gave him a big new contract in the summer. And Ineos said to Bruno, it's different. We're Ineos. We're here. We're going to bring Man United back to the top. And they sold him dreams. Bruno Fernandes loves Manchester United, but Bruno Fernandes is going to be 31 in September, and he knows he's got 2 or 3 seasons max left at the top, and he wants to win Premier Leagues, he wants to win Champions League, or at least be competing. He's not got long left at the top. And Manchester United might say, well, we're going to be at the top in 3 years' time, but Bruno Fernandes will be 34 then. And Bruno Fernandes, can't rely on Man United to be at the top in 3 years' time, because how many times have we said, well, in 3 years' time we'll be at the top, and in 3 years' time we're having another rebuild and we're bloody bottom half of the league table. So Bruno was really open to leaving Man United in the summer, but he loves Man United. And Ineos kind of said to him, we're going to bring Man United back to the top. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to bring Man United back to the top. So I think Bruno, with a love of Man United, signed the new contract, probably because of the numbers on the contract as well. And he stayed. But he had interest from big clubs. And he also had interest from Saudi. And I think he was open to that. Now, I think if a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, Bayern Munich came in for Bruno Fernandes, I think he could go. PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and Barcelona. I think if those 4 clubs came in for Bruno Fernandes, he could go. I don't quite see him going to an Inter. Juventus aren't good enough for him, at the moment. I don't know, he does like the Serie A, but I think it would take a Barcelona or Real Madrid for Bruno to leave us. Now, I don't think Real Madrid are interested in Bruno, to be honest, because they've got Bellingham, they've got Arda Güler, they've got Mbappe, Vinicius, they've got so many players. I think there's more chance of Barcelona going for Bruno Fernandes than Real Madrid. And I know Barcelona have got Dani Olmo, Rafinha that can play as a 10, but I look at it and I think Rafinha on the left, Yamal on the right, you've got, of course, Lewandowski up top and Bruno as the 10. And then you've got Olmo that can compete in there as well. I think, if a Barcelona went in for Bruno, it's a different situation. I think a Bayern Munich could go in for Bruno. A PSG potentially could go in for Bruno Fernandes. But I think with Bellingham, I just don't know if Real Madrid would go for him. Because Bellingham is, for me, a 10. And again, at Real Madrid, we don't know who the manager's going to be next season. Could it be Xabi Alonso? But look, Bruno Fernandes is a Real Madrid player. He's one of those guys where Real Madrid could play really badly and Bruno Fernandes will score the winning goal and Real Madrid will win the Champions League. That's Real Madrid players, those kind of moments players. So I believe there's a lot of top clubs interested in Bruno Fernandes. And I think with Bruno wanting to win trophies, he could go. And I think if Manchester United got an offer of 90 million for Bruno Fernandes at 31 years of age, Manchester United would accept that. Even though he's irreplaceable, I think Man United would accept that. But I think a lot of teams don't play with 10s. The number 10 role isn't as big as it used to be in football. And I don't think he'd go to another Premier League club because I actually think Arne Slot would like Bruno Fernandes, but he's not going to go to Liverpool. He would only go abroad. So for me, this is what I said and why I think it changes the whole summer. Bruno is not for sale, but 90 million offer from Madrid would force United to consider it. The player is open to the move and wants to win major trophies before his prime ends. Look, if Real Madrid came knocking for Bruno Fernandes is going to be interested in leaving Man United for Real Madrid. Why? Why wouldn't Bruno want to leave Man United for Real Madrid? Trent, Liverpool are very good. Trent is a boyhood Liverpool boy, and he's like, yeah, Real Madrid. Do you know what I mean? Bruno Fernandes, of course, would leave Man United for Real Madrid in an absolute heartbeat. I think as much as he loves the club, he would. You're 31 in September. This is Real Madrid. This is Real Madrid that win in Champions League nearly every year. He is United's best player in terms of goals and assists and overall influence. He's the captain. He speaks to all the academy players. He helps the academy players. He helps the new players. He speaks multiple languages. It's not just goals and assists. It's not just the fact that he runs and runs and runs. It's not just the fact that he can play pivot, left wing, right wing, 10 and striker. It's not the fact that he's all-round fantastic player. It's the leadership. It's the off-pitch things he brings. There's not a like-for-like replacement for Bruno Fernandes. For us to replace Bruno Fernandes, we need 2 players. One to replace his creativity and another to bring leadership and athleticism. For me, if you were talking, who would you bring in to replace Bruno Fernandes? I guess Cole Palmer. For me, it would be a Bruno Fernandes replacement because Cole Palmer, right 10 and Ruben Amorim's system, fantastic. For me, how you replace Bruno Fernandes would be bringing in Cole Palmer and bringing in Adam Morton. And that's £200 million. So that ain't going to happen. That, for me, Cole Palmer, and I know he's not in great form, is probably how I'd replace Bruno. Musiala, amazing. I think Rodrigo's an amazing player as well. But I would say probably that, but he's either replaceable. Bruno Guimaraes, in terms of the mentality side of it, loves his club, but he ain't going to leave Newcastle for Man United. He's impossible to replace. So for me, if Bruno Fernandes does go, our whole summer transfer plan is a mess. And because where do we go from then? A Bruno sale would shift the allocation. Like we're talking right now, we need a striker. We need a 10. We need a centre back. And we need a player that can play in the pivot and progress the ball. We need at least those 4 positions. And we haven't even mentioned right wing back and goalkeeper. So we're like, okay, 40 million goes on Delap. 20 million goes on Hayden Hackney. If we're doing this on the cheap, that's 60 million. You know, we could put 50 million on Slotterbeck. I doubt we get him. That's 110 million. And then 10, you know, Cunha's got a 60 million release clause. Okay, 170 million we spent on those 4 players. Delap, Cunha, Hackney, and Slotterbeck. Very good summer, but that's 170 million pounds. If we sell Bruno, we're going to have to spend 150 million pounds to replace him, even if we get 90 million pounds. So we'd have to find them if, like, our whole transfer plan would be like, well, we need a striker, but we now need to replace Bruno, but we need this and we need that. There would be so much to do. And I think the minute Bruno goes, who is the only player in this squad that can actually score goals, we're like, well, we were looking for a goal scorer when we had Bruno. We now need 2 guaranteed goal scorers, but one that can play deeper and also be a leader to replace Bruno. So the whole transfer plan would absolutely shift. It would absolutely change to like, it's like you can't replace him. For me, our transfer plan of we need a striker goes, well, actually, we need a striker, but now we need a Bruno replacement. If Tyler Dibbling is worth 100 million, why would we sell Bruno for 90 million? Because Southampton will easily sell Tyler Dibbling for 50 million as well. Yeah, you know. Bruno, he's the best midfielder in the world and he's been for years. I think if Bruno played for another club, he'd get the appreciation he deserved. Like, Eze's great, but Eze isn't Bruno. Eze was quiet the first few months of this season. He was quiet. I mean, Cole Palmer's dropped off a bit, but he's young. He would cost more than 90 million as well. Lovely chat telling me to shut up in there. Don't know what I've said, sorry. Inform Cole Palmer is the closest thing to Bruno. That's my thing. But look, he's not leaving Chelsea. Like, Palmer isn't leaving Chelsea. Again, I mean, he is a Man United fan, but also, if we had to pay £55 million for Mason Mount when he had 1 year left on his contract, Palmer with about 8 years left on his contract is going to be £150 million. Modric giving stacks of 39. He's dropped off a bit. Bruno could definitely have another 5 years in him. 100%. Real Madrid have too much quality to fit. Carlo has to work magic with squad balance already. Agree. And Bruno's one of those players that's just pure quality rather than squad balance. Do you know who needs Bruno Fernandes? Arsenal. I'll tell you this now. Arsenal need Bruno Fernandes. Arsenal fans won't let me for saying that, but they need Bruno. They need Bruno, but he's not going to go to Arsenal. If Bruno Fernandes went for Arsenal, then I wouldn't like him. Like, I love Bruno. He is my favourite player. But if he went to Arsenal, that he wouldn't. But I think a team that needs a player like Bruno, it's Arsenal. Because Arsenal have all the balance. Arsenal have a squad that's full of balance. But what Arsenal don't have is that moments player. Martin Odegaard doesn't get goals and assists this season at Arsenal. You know, he only shows up for Arsenal when they're playing well, when there's the balance of Ben White and Saka on the right-hand side. Bruno Fernandes is what Arsenal need. Like, if I look at teams that need Bruno, I think he could do really well under Arne Slot in Szoboszlai's role, because I think Szoboszlai's great, but he lacks the goals and assist output. I think, you know, Arsenal need that goals and assist output. But those teams, Bruno ain't going near, you know, his loyalty to United, I think. Palmer's amazing, but it's not Bruno, no. Like, Bruno's dip in form, Palmer's had a dip in form, but can Palmer play deeper? Can Palmer have the leadership of Bruno maybe in years to come? But I agree. You know, it's difficult. Bruno would suit a top Serie A club, but they can't afford the wages or fees, 100%. So for me, like, if Bruno goes, the whole transfer plan is, I don't know. Right now, Man United's transfer priority is striker. We are looking at a striker, a pivot player, a centre-back, you know, a 10. If Bruno goes, we're looking at probably 2 players to play in the pivot, 2 10s, and a striker, and a centre-back, which is 6, on top of probably needing a right wing-back and a goalkeeper. But if a club gave us 90 million for Bruno, I think Man United accept. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. And I'd hope I was wrong, so I don't want Bruno to go anywhere. But I do strongly believe if a club came in, knocked on the door and said, we give you 90 million for Bruno, United would look at it and say, as much as Bruno is irreplaceable, he's 31. He's 31 next season, and we're not going to get that kind of money from him again. So as brilliant as Bruno is, as amazing as he is United, and as good as he's been this season, the fact that we could be an absolute mess without him, we could accept. I think we're in a position where we're 12th in the league right now. Let's say we end the league better and we finish 9th this season and we win the Europa League and get back in the Champions League. I think Bruno stays for in the Champions League for sure. unless Real Madrid are like, we want you, we want you. But I think we're in a position next season where we can't sell Bruno. We need Bruno next season. Next season is Amorim's first season for me because he's going to have his players in. And next season's the year where we're going to have all these new players in coming and learning Amorim's system, and you need a leader. And Bruno Fernandes could be a next season, and this time next year we could be fourth in the Premier League, and we could be looking good and showing progress. And then this time next year we say, look, we can move on Bruno. He doesn't actually suit Amorim's system, but he's just got the quality that we needed to get through the season and look at replacing Bruno. But I think this summer, striker, 10, pivot player, centre back, right wing back. Next summer, you can look at the goalkeepers. You can look at the Bruno replacements. But he's irreplaceable for me. He's absolutely irreplaceable for me. David said, I think you're right. Human in and two tight and wide 10s behind the 9. Human's an interesting one because I think we need more of a progressive passer in the pivot, if I was going to be honest. But I like him. I think it's good Ugarte backup, but it's quality of the Ugarte backup now. Yeah, none of the top clubs that could afford Bruno really need that kind of signing right now, so not worried about it. Yeah, I agree. Gula, I like Arda Gula. He's not getting crazy minutes at Madrid. Endrick is just too young, too raw, and I think he's a little overrated. I've always said that on Endrick. I think it's Esteval who's going to Chelsea who's going to have a better career than Endrick. I've always felt that from what I watched of Palmeiras, which was 2 games. So, no, 3 games actually, 3 games and some highlights. So I'm not obviously the pro, so don't hold me to that opinion. But yes, I think Gula would be one I would go for as well. Is it Geller or Gula? Because I said Arda Geller and everyone was like, it's Arda Gula. Then I said Arda Gula and everyone it's Arda Geller. Amorim rates Human as a more progressive passer than Ugarte. Well, most players are more progressive passer than Ugarte, but doesn't mean they're probably. I think when I look at progressive passers, I think Subamende, I think Angelo Stiller, and I think Adam Wharton. And I think we can't get any of those players. Wharton, if we were going to break the bank, but I don't think we're in a position to. So I think we'll get Hayden Hackney. I honestly would put £10 on us getting Hayden Hackney this summer, and there's been no credible links to him. I just feel like it makes sense. And he ticks the Wilcox boxes, the links with Carrick as well. I would not be shocked in the slightest if we got Hayden Hackney. I've got some okay. I've actually got some interesting information that I think I'm going to share in a video tomorrow. There's a lot of interesting news going on at United in terms of young players we're looking at, but I'm probably going to save it to tomorrow because I don't want to waffle too much and make this video too long. So let's talk about the Adam Wharton news. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Manchester City are all interested in signing Adam Wharton, who Crystal Palace have valued at 100 million. The difference between Tyler Dibbling being valued at 100 million and Adam Wharton being valued at 100 million is I think Crystal Palace could get 70, 80 million for Adam Wharton. When you look at Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez and the fee that Chelsea paid, I think Adam Wharton is definitely one of those players that you could get 80 million for. Maybe not 100 million yet, because Adam Wharton had a poor start to the season, but he was injured. But he's been really good the last 10 games for Palace where they've been unreal. But I think 80 million you could seriously get for Adam Wharton. I think Tyler Dibbling is a 50 million max because maybe a Tottenham would get desperate and pay that. I think Adam Wharton you could get 80 million for because you look at the midfield market. I think Chelsea don't need Adam Wharton. They've got Caicedo, they've got Enzo, they're progressive passers, and they've got Lavia. I think Chelsea needs someone that actually could maybe play a bit further up. Arsenal could massively do with an Adam Wharton. I think he suits them more than Subamende. Manchester City could definitely do with an Adam Wharton, but they brought obviously that Nico guy in, and they also brought in not just Nico. They've also got Rodri back. So I don't know. I think, to be honest, I think United, Arsenal, if they don't get Subamende, and Liverpool would be the 3 most in for Wharton. But I just don't know with the price tag if it happens. I don't know if with the price tag if we would get Adam Wharton. I think the price tag could be Wharton is about I think 80 million. Look, if you could get Wharton for 60 million, I'd do it. I wouldn't pay more than 60 million for Wharton, but Crystal Palace, I think if they rejected a 60 million bid for Wharton, I'd say fair. For me, if I was selling Kobbie Mainoo, I'd want 90 million pounds. So I think Crystal Palace will say if they're selling Adam Wharton, they'd want a fee in that region. But the most I think we could afford to pay for Wharton is 60 million. Because Cunha is going to be 60 million as well. Everyone want Cunha. Delap's 40 million. We also need a centre-back. It's one of those. But I think Crystal Palace have the right to ask like, I don't think Southampton have the right to ask for 100 million for Dibbling, especially when they're getting relegated, and he's not as good as Asmorden. But I think Crystal Palace again, 100 million, they're never going to get that. But I think he's an 80 million. They could ask for 80 million because they don't need to sell him. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense. I want to see Collier given a proper run. Me too. I think he could be very good. Gyökeres. There's also some interesting transfer news coming out on Victor Gyökeres. Manchester United appreciate Gyökeres. Ruben Amorim is a big fan. He's one of the names on the list, but nothing's done yet. We have to see when United will approve the budget and understand how much they can spend on a striker. Now, I wrote in red, I can only see this happening if we qualify for the UCL. Reliable sources have confirmed that Victor Gyökeres going to Manchester United is unlikely. Ornstein said that. Sources also said that Gyökeres doesn't want to move to Manchester United, he wants to move to a top club. The only way we sign Victor Gyökeres, is if we win the Europa League. We need Champions League football for Gyökeres. One, Champions League football increases our budget by about £25 million, and I think all of a sudden, Delap £40 million, Gyökeres £58 million release clause, plus more wages, that £25 million from getting in the Champions League would pay the difference from Delap to Gyökeres, and Gyökeres is more likely to want to come. I think the only way it happens is, again, if we pay that money. For me, that's the only... Sorry, if we win the Europa League. I'd love Gyökeres, I'd love Ostenham, but I think a Delap is more realistic at this point. Like, if I was to sit here and someone said, Alice, I want you to guess 3 players that you think Manchester United would sign in the summer, my 3 options would be Delap, Hayden Hackney, and Roger Fernandes, if I had to sit here and guess 3 names. Because I just don't know if we could get a Frimpong. And I hate saying that and being negative. I don't know if we could get a Frimpong. I don't know if we can get a Gyökeres. I don't know if we can get an Ostenham. Marcus Rashford's smashing it at Villa. If he continues to do well, we're going to get money for him. Anthony's doing well at Betis. We're going to get money for him. Malassia's doing well at PSV. We're going to get money for him. If Saudi come in for Casemiro, great. Ericsson's gone. Evans is gone. Lindelof is gone. Maybe Garnacho goes out and we've got more money to bring players in. But yeah, I think it depends on a multitude of factors. There's also a few other news stories coming in. It was also said by United scouts that Jason Wilcox is a big fan of Delap and he's pushing for the move. Jason Wilcox likes Metcha. He likes Delap and he likes Tyler Dibbling. Delap is really one to watch. Again, United scout, good source on Twitter, actually put out quite a bit of info. Actually, they talked about the Trincao rumours and they said that there's nothing going on right now. They also linked us to Ousmane Diao, who another United source also recently linked us to Ousmane Diao as well, who's an FC Midfield centre-back that United are watching. Could be £15 million. Right-footed centre-back. So they spoke about Diao, and maybe again I'll touch upon him more in a live show tomorrow and get into more detail about the player. But also there was other news stories coming out like this. You've got Matheus Cunha saying, I've made it clear I need to take the next step. I want to fight for titles. So Cunha has basically confirmed he wants to leave as well. So that's updates going in there. But we are also scouting Diao at Como, the winger. So we're looking at Diao, the centre-back from Midfield, and Diao, the winger, as well. And then, obviously, Marcus Rashford today in the FA Cup in absolute great form. Another young developing guy makes no sense. Already have those. Yeah, for me, I've always said I like Delap, big fan of him. If we sign Delap, I'm not going to complain. But we need a Gyökeres. We need an Ostenham more. Wilcox is a big fan of Delap, 100%. We do really like him. If we sneak CL, Gyökeres may not. Even if we get Champions League, he may not. We just got to hope on that Amorim pull. But I feel like we'll sign one player from Sporting. I just feel like there'll be one. And to be honest, if I was going to guess an FCO. So, Marcus Rashford is creating 3.1 chances a game at Villa, 1.4 big chances a game at Villa, 0.8 assists a game at Villa. He's having more shots at Villa. He's having more touches at Villa and playing more passes into the box at Villa. And Marcus Rashford, when in form, is deadly. He's absolutely deadly, Marcus Rashford, when in form, and he's smashing it at Villa. And if he continues to do this, as much as I'd love to see Marcus Rashford play for United again, it's not going to happen under Amorim. It means we get some cash money. It means we get some cash money in the summer, and that's going to help us in terms of investing. You know, I love Marcus Rashford. I'm a big fan of him. I'm always stuck up for him because I believe that if you get behind Marcus Rashford and he's happy, he's one of the most deadly players out there. And I always just think I would always get behind Rashford because I just know how good he is when he's good. But again, he has been frustrating at United. Obviously, the situation with Amorim, he's not coming back. But I think his form is really, really good for United. because it means that while Villa have got a 40 million option to buy, Barcelona might say, hey, you know what, we'll give you 50 million. And you never know, that could happen in regards to Marcus Rashford. But listen, people, I want to keep the show to about 35 minutes so it's easier for people to watch on the replay. I don't want to drag on this show for too long, but I will read a couple of live chats before we round up as well. Delap has a little bit of Premier League experience. He does, but I think we need a bit more experience. Overpaid for potential and Hoyland, need to pay for proven starts now. I agree. No need for more money to throw up potential. I agree. We've got a lot of potential. I think we could go for 1 or 2 players in terms of potential, maybe nearer the back, but at the front, we need proven. We need a proven goal scorer because that makes a big difference. April's a big month for United. We've got Newcastle, we've got Real Sociedad, we've got Nottingham Forest. I think we've got to play City again. We've got some big games. Like, honestly, we don't have an easy end to the season. We've got Bournemouth again as well soon, and Bournemouth like to smash us at home. Naipan, maybe could be one to watch in the summer. I think Arsenal in for that, but apparently he rejected Arsenal in January, which was interesting. I don't know the truth in that as well. Do you think you said you will sell Garnacho and one other youngster, and you'll be happy? Nobody wants your other Deadwood. I think there's a lot of players at United that people would want because they'll leave United and be good. That's been proven. But yeah, I think, we could sell Garnacho or Meno. I think if it was going to be one, it'd be Garnacho, but I don't think we want to sell them. I just think if we were looking desperate for money, we could do it, but hopefully not. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video. See you next time. Bye.